Hello BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. Ordinarily I would be doing this video later in the evening around 6:30 Central Time, but for the past week and for the next few weeks going forward, I'll be watching Celebrity Big Brother at 7 since it's a 2-hour episode, and so I don't want to miss anything or get yelled at. So I'm going to go ahead and be doing weekly reads earlier in the day, which kind of helps as well because I'm not entirely sure what I would be starting today anyway, so we'll see. But let's get going on the books. I've had a pretty good reading week this week. One bail, but anyway. So I started the reading week finishing up Sos Points 1961 to 2013 by Amiri Baraka. This is a collected edition of Baraka's work, although I don't think it's complete. Amiri Baraka was an American poet who wrote during whose oeuvre spanned the beats to the near present. I mean, it was 2013 when he died. I picked up this collection, I think in 2020, and read it and quite liked it. But this rereading, I love it even more. I loved every poem I read. It's a really fascinating, really visceral, powerful collection. Baraka's poetry is social. It's heavily active and activist. It's deeply political. It's, on the left end of the spectrum, which at times can perhaps get him into trouble. One of his most famous poems, Somebody Blew Up America, does veer into left-wing conspiracy theory, but it is still a powerful, moving poem, and so many of the poems in this collection are incredibly powerful and moving, and I really loved this collection. After I finished SOS, I moved on to David Mogo Godhunter by Suyi, Davies, Okungbowa. This is an urban fantasy set in a post-apocalyptic Lagos, Nigeria, decades after an event called The Falling, in which the gods of the Yoruba pantheon fell to earth, alongside a number of quasi-godlike beings called godlings. David Mogo is a demigod who makes a living effectively as pest control. The godlings are rather pest-like. And he goes around and he captures them and he releases them into areas of Lagos that have become overrun by the godlings. One day he is approached by a wizard named Ajala to capture two powerful gods, the Ibeji twins. David captures Taiwo and is forced to make an alliance with Kahindi, his twin sister, and this sort of event snowballs into a battle for Lagos between the humans and the gods who decided to side with the humans, and the gods who basically want to make a new home in Lagos by invading and conquering. And this is a very fascinating book. I really enjoyed it. I love the plot. I love the ending. So often writers don't quite stick the landing, but I think Okungbowa really sticks it well. The ending is amazingly well done. And I love the side characters, the Veggie twins, Fati, Papa Udi, um, Femi, and Solonugwa. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering her name. Ogun, Olokun. Even the villains, to a degree, are fascinating. Um, my one, I think I have two issues with the book. One is David Mogo as a character. I really don't particularly care for his character. I think in part because there are, I guess, certain archetypes or tropes that you really can escape from. And perhaps most readers love these archetypes, but I find them to be rather annoying at times, and particularly in this case where there are certain tropes common in hard-boiled detective fiction that even when the novel is more of an occult detective novel or ish in a fantasy, it's still there. It's, I mean, also an issue I have with Leviathan's Wake. But in this case, it's sort of David. He's already hating the job, which, I mean, of course, it pans out that the job is dirty. But there's a rage to him, to David Mogo, that I found rather off-putting for the most part. Although, I mean, of course, that rage does sort of act more as an impediment to his character development, which I did enjoy. I really liked his character development. But I'm also not entirely fond of the repetitiveness of the narrative. The novel is, in a way, 3 novellas that have a similar sort of rise and fall action and rather similar events that I found a bit trying. But for the most part, I mean, I really did enjoy David Mogo Godhunter and highly recommend it. Next, I had another go at The Conductors by Nicole Glover. This is a historical occult detective novel about 2 former slaves who acted as conductors on the Underground Railroad, heading in Benji roads, who have become occult detectives in 1871 Philadelphia. The couple basically conduct or investigate strange crimes, murders that the police in Philadelphia aren't interested in looking into. So the novel opens with Hetty and Benji rescuing a convoy of captured people who are being sent to work on a farm. And then later, one of their associates, although not a friendly one, is found murdered. And they investigate this murder. Like, obviously, I bailed on this book when I read it late last year. And I bailed on it again. I really don't particularly care for the character of Hetty. It's just, I don't know, I think for much of the same reason that I'm not particularly fond of David Mogo's character, or for that matter, the trend of the angry private detective that is so common in hard-boiled detective fiction. I don't particularly care for Sam Spade's character or Philip Marlowe's character. So, yeah, I mean, it's a genre thing, I think. Or in this case, a genre bleed-through. Or an archetype bleed-through, I guess. So, and unlike with David Mogo Godhunter, in which I could connect with the supporting cast. That's not true here. None of the characters really jumped out at me or appealed to me, and Hetty is just so overwhelmingly trying that I'm like, I really don't want to read any more of this novel. So I bailed again. So that left me with a bit of a conundrum for what to read the rest of the week. So I ended up not having any time to read on Wednesday because my mom had physical therapy that I watched in on, and also we had enchiladas, which took a bit of time to cook. But on Thursday, I went and read some manga, and I read Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Seven Deadly Sins by Nakaba Suzuki. The Seven Deadly Sins is about a young woman named Elizabeth. She's a princess of Britannia. In the aftermath of a coup by the Holy Knights, magical order of the knighthood who have grown increasingly powerful and tyrannical, Elizabeth flees, or Princess Elizabeth flees in search of the Seven Deadly Sins, a separate order of the knighthood composed of 7 criminals who 10 years prior were accused of conspiring to overthrow the kingdom. Obviously, given the coup that the Holy Knights successfully enacted, and also their increasingly tyrannical rule, Princess Elizabeth makes the obvious inference that the Seven Deadly Sins probably aren't as bad as they're being made out to be. So Princess Elizabeth goes in pursuit of information that could lead her to find the Seven Deadly Sins when she stumbles upon a young boy, or who appears to be a young man, named Melodias, who is revealed to be one of the Seven Deadly Sins. He is Wrath. And together they save a village and decide to go in pursuit of the other Seven Deadly Sins, which comprise these 2 volumes, finding Diane and Ban, who's in the 2nd volume. Again, like I said when I read this in 2020, I really enjoyed rereading these 2 volumes. It was an amazing experience. I just loved every moment I had with these 2 volumes. The characterization, the art, the art, I love it. Particularly the action scenes. It's so vibrant and impactful. I really, really enjoy these 2 volumes. Which kind of puts me in a bit of a conundrum, which I'll talk a bit about before I go talk about what I'll be reading this coming reading week. In that I still have some Christmas money left to play with. And I'm thinking of doing an order with Amazon. Although I've been kind of thinking about doing one with either Book People or Pals. It probably would be Book People because I already ordered quite a bit with Pals this month, which you'll see in my book haul in a few weeks. But anyway, so one of my options is I could pick up some literary fiction. I have a hunger for that again. And off of the successful rereading of the Swimming Pool Library, I'm feeling a bit more confident with literary fiction. Or I could pick up some science fiction and fantasy, would be mostly fantasy, that I've been eyeing for a while. Also to help support Moon Witch Spider King by Marlon James, which I've got on pre-order. It'll be coming in next week. So when I put Moon Witch Spider King on the shelves, it's not the only one. I have more books to put on, so it's not a whole issue with me rearranging my science fiction and fantasy shelves. Assuming I do so, because I might just leave it as it is while I'm doing my library tour. We'll see. Or I could pick up some more manga. I still have the Manga Madness. And so there's quite a few volumes of Fairy Tale I want to pick up, and Eden Zero. And I might even go ahead and do a bit of an order on for Volume 5 of Tolabound Hanako-kun. So I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with that. But I'll probably make up my mind by Monday. So I really don't want to have a Sunday delivery with Amazon, because those Sunday deliveries are always stressful. So, what will I be reading this coming reading week? I'm planning on reading The Return of the Sorcerer, The Best of Clark Ashton Smith by Clark Ashton Smith. Clark Ashton Smith is one of my favorite fantasy writers and pulp writers. He wrote during the same years as Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft. And was, I think, in correspondence, at least with Lovecraft. I don't know if he was in correspondence with Howard, too. But Clark Ashton Smith's writings, his oeuvre, cover what would be considered urban fantasy, but also science fantasy, sword and sorcery, weird science fiction. It's a wide array of stories, and I love his work. This is actually the first collection of his I read. Years ago, I was interested in his work. I'm not entirely sure. I think I read an article about him on the Blackgate website, and that got me interested in finding his work. And I did a quick search at my local library's website and saw that they had this book, Return of the Sorcerer. So I requested it, and nothing happened. And it was about a week or two later when I got an email, or I think it was an email from the library, and they said, "I'm sorry, it seems we don't have this book anymore. While it's says it's in our collection, we can't find it." So they assumed somebody had actually stolen it. So I asked them to interlibrary loan it for me, and they did, and I read it, and I loved it. I think every story in here I quite enjoyed, if memory serves, and I've gone on to collect 2 other collections of Clark Ashton Smith's work. But there are a few that I kind of want more. There's like a specific series that he wrote that I want to collect, but they're all from like the 70s or 80s, and they're wildly expensive. Like, I really want the Zothique collection, his sword and sorcery short stories from that's set in a far future Earth. And he also had some that are set in the far past and other things, and it's really good. I love his work. Next, I might have a go at The Golden Swan by Nancy Springer. Obviously, I mentioned this this past week on the birth year book tag. This came out in 1983, and I said, well, since I have it in my collection, I might as well get on it. So I will make an effort to read it sometime this week. If not this week, then maybe sometime later, but I'll have this definitely on the go. And I also want to finally have a go at Griot, a Sword and Soul anthology edited by Milton J. Davies and Charles R. Saunders. This is a collection of Sword and Soul short stories. It's Sword and Soul is sword and sorcery inspired by African history and African folklore, mythology, and I'm quite looking forward to it. I've wanted to have it for a while, and I picked it up, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, but I haven't gotten around to it yet, which is I need to do. So that's my plan for this coming reading week. Obviously, these are all fantasy novels. last week was relatively fantasy heavy, and while I'm not a co-host um, of February Fantasy Stories, I think that's what it's called, that's being hosted by the book or created by the Bookish Minds and hosted by a whole slew of booktubers who read fantasy and science fiction, because this is a spin-off of New Worlds in November. And I'd originally not planned on participating because obviously I was going to be doing No Fiction 2022, which blew up in my face. So I kind of decided, yeah, I'll kind of participate. So I was planning on reading Griot and The Return of the Sorcerer and Imaro. So, but anyway, so that's kind of my plans for this week. And yeah, we'll see how things turn out. And if I need to, I'll probably start what I'm planning on reading next week, earlier like this week sometime if I have the free time. So no booktube. That's my plan for this coming reading week. And I'll see you on Monday with part 20 of my 2022 library tour. So until then, booktube, thank you. Have a great evening, well, afternoon, evening, and weekend, and I will see you on Monday. So until then, stay safe.